The Cambrian explosion marks the most important turning point in the history of life on Earth. Before this moment, roughly 540 million years ago, the oceans were quiet places dominated by simple, soft-bodied organisms. Life existed, but it lacked complexity. There were no true predators, no complex food webs, no arms races. The planet was alive, but it was not yet dangerous. Then, in a relatively short geological window, something extraordinary happened. Life did not slowly improve. It detonated into complexity. Within a span of about 20 to 25 million years, almost every major animal body plan appeared in the oceans. Creatures developed heads, tails, segmented bodies, limbs, eyes, mouths, and defensive armor. For the first time, life became structured into ecosystems with clear roles such as hunters, grazers, scavengers, and ambush predators. This was not a gentle transition. It was an evolutionary explosion driven by competition, fear, and survival. The Cambrian oceans were shallow, warm, and rich in nutrients. Continental shelves were flooded, creating vast marine habitats. Oxygen levels in the water increased, allowing animals to grow larger and develop more energy-demanding organs. These conditions created the perfect environment for rapid experimentation. Evolution was no longer limited to simple survival. It began to explore speed, strength, perception, and intelligence. One of the most critical innovations of this period was vision. Before the Cambrian, most organisms had no need to see. Light-sensitive cells were enough to detect day and night. But once predators appeared, vision became a weapon. Animals that could detect movement, shapes, and contrast had a massive advantage. Eyes evolved rapidly and in many different forms. Compound eyes, simple lens eyes, and light-sensing pits all emerged independently. Once organisms could see their environment, the ocean changed forever. Hiding became difficult, and speed became essential. With vision came the rise of true predators. Anomalocaris emerged as one of the first large, active hunters. It had grasping appendages, a circular mouth lined with hard plates, and large compound eyes capable of detailed vision. This was a creature built to chase, capture, and consume other animals. Its presence alone reshaped the ecosystem. Of prey species that had no defenses were quickly eliminated. Survival now depended on adaptation. This pressure triggered the first evolutionary arms race. Prey species responded by developing armor shells, spines, and tougher body structures. Trilobites evolved hard exoskeletons that protected their soft tissues. Some species learned to burrow into sediment, while others developed spines that made them difficult to swallow. Predators responded in turn with stronger mouthparts, improved grasping limbs, and more efficient hunting strategies. Evolution accelerated because standing still meant extinction. The Cambrian explosion is often misunderstood as a single event, but it was more accurately a cascade. Once one innovation appeared, it forced others to respond. Jaws led to armor, armor led to better jaws. Movement led to pursuit, pursuit led to evasion. Intelligence began to matter because behavior could now mean the difference between life and death. Animals that could sense, predict, and react faster had an advantage that genes alone could not provide. This is why the Cambrian seas look alien to modern eyes. Many body plans that emerged during this time have no direct descendants today. Evolution was experimenting wildly. Nature was testing what worked and discarding what did not. The ocean floor was filled with strange forms unlike anything alive now. Some floated, others crawled, some swam upside down or sideways. Symmetry itself was still being explored. Another key factor was the development of skeletons, both external and internal. Skeletons provided structure, allowing animals to grow larger and move more efficiently. They also served as protection. Once skeletons became common predators, had to evolve stronger feeding mechanisms to break or bypass them. This feedback loop intensified natural selection, and growth, size, and strength became defining traits. Importantly, all of this happened in the ocean, not on land. The sea provided buoyancy, which reduced the energy cost of large bodies. It allowed animals to grow bigger without collapsing under their own weight. It also allowed three-dimensional movement. Predators could attack from above, below, or behind. Prey had to be aware in every direction. This created a far more complex survival environment than anything land would later offer. The Cambrian explosion also established the fundamental structure of food webs. Producers, consumers, and apex predators became clearly defined. Energy flowed from microscopic organisms to large animals, and finally to top hunters. Once this structure formed, it became the blueprint for all future ecosystems. Even today, modern oceans still follow the same basic rules established during the Cambrian. This era is a visual goldmine because it represents the birth of danger, the moment when the ocean stopped being passive and became hostile. Glowing eyes, hard shells, massive jaws, and unfamiliar shapes dominate this world. It feels alien not because it is fictional, but because it predates familiarity. Audiences are drawn to this because it taps into primal fear. Fear of being hunted, fear of the unseen, fear of environments where humans do not belong. Unlike land dinosaurs, which are overrepresented and culturally familiar, Cambrian life remains mysterious. Few people can name Cambrian animals. Fewer can visualize how they lived. This creates a sense of discovery. Viewers are not watching a retelling of a known story. They are witnessing the origin of all complex life, including themselves. This period also reframes the narrative of dominance. Dinosaurs did not invent predation. Mammals did not invent intelligence. Even reptiles did not invent the arms race. The ocean did. Long before land was ruled by giants, the sea had already perfected dominance, extinction, and survival. The Cambrian explosion was the training ground where evolution learned how to build killers and survivors. Everything that comes later, marine reptiles, apex ocean predators, and even the extinction of sea giants, traces its lineage back to this moment. Without the Cambrian explosion, there would be no mosasaurs, no sharks, no whales, no humans. It is the foundation of all complex ecosystems. When the oceans ruled the planet, this was the moment they claimed that throne. The Cambrian explosion was not just the beginning of animal life, it was the beginning of conflict. Life stopped simply existing and started competing. The ocean became a battlefield where innovation meant survival and stagnation meant death. This is why it performs so well as a documentary focus. It is not abstract biology. It is a story of escalation, danger, and dominance, written into the DNA of every living animal today. From this point forward, evolution would never slow down again. It had discovered a new rule: adapt or disappear. Long before dinosaurs thundered across continents, and long before forests reshaped the atmosphere, Earth was a water-dominated planet. For most of its history, life did not look upward toward the sky. It looked outward into endless shallow seas. Land was hostile, dry, and unstable. Oceans were where energy flowed, where chemistry thrived, and where evolution learned how to build complexity. For nearly 3 billion years, life remained confined to water. Even after oxygen began to accumulate in the atmosphere, the land surface was exposed to intense radiation, temperature extremes, and a lack of nutrients. Oceans provided protection, stability, and constant interaction. Tides, mixed nutrients, sunlight penetrated shallow shelves, and chemical gradients powered metabolism. This is why life did not rush onto land. It had no reason to. During this immense stretch of time, the oceans were not empty or simple. They were layered worlds with surface waters rich in photosynthetic organisms, deeper zones dominated by drifting plankton and seafloors, alive with microbial mats and early animals. Even before large predators appeared, these systems were already complex. Bacteria, algae, and simple multicellular organisms formed the foundation of planetary biology. When complex animals finally emerged, they did so into an environment that had already been refined by billions of years of chemical and biological interaction. The ocean was ready, land was not. This is why the first complex ecosystems were marine ecosystems, and why dominance emerged there first. The idea that land life represents the main stage of evolution is a human bias. From an evolutionary perspective, land is a side branch, the ocean is the trunk. Even today, over 90% of the habitable volume on Earth exists underwater. Most life, by biomass, still resides in the sea. Dominance never truly left the ocean. It only diversified. In the early Paleozoic era, marine environments expanded dramatically. Rising sea levels flooded continental interiors, creating vast, shallow seas teeming with life. These environments were ideal for evolutionary experimentation. Sunlight reached the bottom, nutrients were constantly replenished, and temperature swings were minimal. These conditions allowed animals to specialize rapidly. It was in these shallow seas that the first true food webs emerged. Producers, consumers, and predators formed stable but competitive systems. Once predation became established, evolution accelerated. Animals began to specialize not only by body shape but by behavior. Some hunted actively, others ambushed, some grazed while others scavenged. Niches multiplied and competition intensified. This is the moment when oceans truly ruled the planet, not through size alone, but through complexity. Marine ecosystems became the most advanced biological systems on Earth. Land remained barren, broken only by microbial films and primitive plants. There were no forests, no large herbivores, no predators on land. All biological power was concentrated in the sea. As time progressed, fish began to dominate these systems. Early jawless fish evolved into jawed forms with powerful bites, improved swimming efficiency, and advanced sensory systems. Jaws transformed feeding from passive filtering into active hunting. Once jaws appeared, the balance of power shifted permanently. Predators became faster, more aggressive, and more selective. The rise of fish marked the first era of vertebrate dominance. Spines provided structural support, muscles anchored efficiently, and nervous systems became more centralized. This allowed greater control, faster reaction times, and more complex behaviors. Oceans became arenas of pursuit, evasion, and tactical hunting. Even when plants began to colonize land and insects followed, vertebrates remained hesitant. Leaving the ocean meant abandoning buoyancy, stable temperatures, and abundant food. The earliest land vertebrates were not pioneers seeking opportunity. They were refugees escaping competition. Shallow waters became crowded, dangerous, and dominated by increasingly efficient predators. The transition to land was not a conquest. It was a compromise. Early tetrapods ventured into wetlands and river edges, not because land was superior, but because the ocean was becoming too competitive. This reframes the entire story of terrestrial life. Land animals did not rise because land offered more. They rose because the sea was already ruled. For hundreds of millions of years after this transition, marine ecosystems continued to outpace land in size, diversity, and dominance. While forests slowly expanded, oceans produced giants. Massive armored fish, apex predators, and later marine reptiles reached sizes land animals could not match at the time. The physics of water allowed this. Buoyancy reduced skeletal stress and enabled larger bodies to function efficiently. Marine reptiles would later exploit this advantage fully. Ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and mosasaurs became the undisputed rulers of their world. They did not merely resemble fish. They rivaled and exceeded them in speed, intelligence, and predatory efficiency. While dinosaurs ruled land in spectacle, oceans ruled in scale. This dominance was not just physical, it was ecological. Marine food webs were deeper, more interconnected, and more resilient. Energy flowed through plankton to fish to reptiles to apex predators. This complexity made oceans both powerful and vulnerable. When disruptions occurred, they cascaded rapidly. Mass extinctions repeatedly demonstrated this. While land ecosystems collapsed, oceans often recovered faster. Surviving lineages diversified quickly, filling emptied niches. Sharks, for example, survived multiple extinction events by adapting their feeding strategies, body plans, and reproductive methods. Flexibility became the ultimate survival trait. The familiarity of dinosaurs has overshadowed this history. Popular culture presents land as the main stage of evolution with oceans as background. Scientifically, this is inverted. Oceans were the primary arena where evolutionary rules were written, tested, and enforced. Land merely adopted those rules later. This is why ocean-focused narratives perform so strongly. They reveal a hidden majority. Viewers encounter a version of Earth that feels unfamiliar yet foundational. It challenges assumptions and expands scale. It reframes dominance, not as something that began with dinosaurs, but as something far older and deeper. When oceans ruled the planet, life was already sophisticated, brutal, and dynamic. Predation existed, extinction occurred, and ecosystems collapsed and rebuilt. Dinosaurs inherited a world shaped by marine history. Mammals inherited a planet stabilized by oceanic processes. Even human civilization depends on systems forged underwater long before land mattered. The ocean ruled not because land was weak, but because water allowed evolution to move faster, further, and deeper. It enabled experimentation at a scale land could not match. This dominance did not end. It simply became less visible to surface dwellers. Even now, oceans regulate climate, generate oxygen, and absorb heat. They shape weather patterns and sustain global food chains. In every meaningful planetary sense, the ocean still rules. The story of early Earth is not a prelude to land dominance. It is a reminder that power began in the sea and never truly left it. Understanding this changes how prehistoric life is perceived. It shifts focus away from familiar giants towards systems that built them. It reveals that before dinosaurs, before forests, before mammals, the planet already belonged to the ocean. And for most of Earth's history, it always has. The rise of the first ocean predators changed the rules of life permanently. Before predators existed, survival was largely passive. Organisms filtered nutrients, absorbed energy, or slowly grazed across the seafloor. Death happened, but it was mostly environmental. Changes in temperature, chemistry, or oxygen levels determined who lived and who vanished. With the appearance of predators, death became personal, targeted, and immediate. The first true predators did not simply eat other organisms. They forced life to evolve faster. Once an animal could actively hunt another animal, evolution entered a feedback loop that would never stop. Every successful hunt applied pressure. Every failed escape removed weak traits from the gene pool. Natural selection became sharp and unforgiving. Early predators emerged in the Cambrian seas, where visibility, movement, and proximity created opportunity. Anomalocaris stands as the most iconic example, but it was not alone. Several species developed grasping limbs, piercing mouthparts, and forward-facing sensory organs. These were not random features. They were tools designed for pursuit and capture. Anomalocaris possessed large compound eyes, capable of detecting contrast and movement at distance. This alone gave it an enormous advantage. Prey could no longer rely on stillness. Being seen meant being targeted. Speed and awareness became survival traits overnight. Animals that could move efficiently or detect vibrations survived. Those that could not were eliminated rapidly. The appearance of predators reshaped prey anatomy almost immediately. Soft-bodied organisms declined in abundance. Hard shells and protective coverings became common. Trilobites are a clear example. Their exoskeletons offered protection, but came at a cost. Heavier armor meant slower movement and increased energy demand. Evolution began to balance trade-offs between defense and mobility. Some prey species chose a different strategy. Instead of armor, they evolved behavior. Burrowing into sediment allowed animals to avoid detection entirely. Others developed spines or toxic tissues that made them unappealing targets. Diversity exploded because there was no single solution. Survival favored creativity. Predators adapted just as quickly. Stronger mouthparts evolved to crush shells. Longer limbs allowed better reach. Body plans streamlined for speed replaced bulky forms. Hunting became more efficient and selective. Predators did not simply attack everything. They targeted the easiest prey. This created constant pressure on prey populations to avoid being average. This selective pressure drove specialization. Animals began occupying narrower ecological roles. Some fed only on plankton, others grazed algae, others hunted specific prey sizes. This reduced direct competition but increased interdependence. Food webs became layered and fragile. Removing one species could destabilize an entire system. The emergence of predation also accelerated the development of nervous systems. Faster reaction times required better signal processing. Simple nerve nets evolved into more centralized systems. Decision-making began to matter. Choosing when to flee, when to hide, and when to remain still could mean survival. This marks the first appearance of fear as an evolutionary force. Organisms that responded appropriately to threats lived longer and reproduced more. Fear shaped sensory systems, movement patterns, and even life cycles. Many animals evolved to reproduce quickly before being eaten. Others delayed maturity until reaching safer sizes. Once predators existed, extinction became more common but also more targeted. Species did not vanish because the environment changed. They vanished because they were outcompeted, hunted, or unable to adapt. This refined ecosystems and increased overall complexity. Inefficient designs were eliminated quickly. This process explains why the ocean became the birthplace of advanced life. Water allowed predators to move freely in 3 dimensions. Attacks could come from any direction. Prey had to remain vigilant at all times. This constant pressure drove rapid innovation. Land environments would not experience this level of predatory intensity until much later. The legacy of these early predators extends far beyond the Cambrian. Every apex predator that followed inherited their blueprint. Fish, sharks, marine reptiles, and eventually whales all follow the same fundamental rules established during this period. Forward-facing senses, efficient movement, and specialized feeding structures trace back to these first hunters. Even human perception of danger is shaped by this history. Fear of unseen movement in dark water triggers ancient survival instincts. The idea of something watching from below is not cultural. It is evolutionary memory. Predators in the ocean forced life to evolve under constant threat. This is why apex ocean predators remain compelling. They represent dominance refined over hundreds of millions of years. Unlike land predators constrained by gravity, oceans allow size, speed, and stealth to reach extremes. This creates creatures that feel unstoppable. Documentary narratives that focus on the rise of predators tap into this deep evolutionary drama. Viewers are not just learning biology. They are witnessing the origin of conflict, the moment when life stopped being passive and became adversarial. The first ocean predators did not just hunt prey. They reshaped evolution itself. Without them, complexity would have stalled. Intelligence would have evolved slowly, if at all. Ecosystems would lack structure. Danger was the catalyst that forced life to become innovative. From this point forward, dominance would always belong to those who could sense faster, move smarter, and strike more efficiently. The ocean taught evolution how to build killers and survivors. Every marine reptile, every shark, and every modern predator is a descendant of this lesson. When the oceans ruled the planet, it was predators who enforced that rule. Not through sheer size, but through relentless, selective pressure. They were the architects of complexity and the engines of evolutionary progress. The shift from soft-bodied life to armored forms marks one of the most dramatic transformations in Earth's biological history. In the earliest oceans, most animals had little protection. Their bodies were flexible, delicate, and vulnerable. This was sufficient in a world without active hunters. Once predators emerged, softness became a liability. Survival demanded structure. The first armor did not appear for beauty or strength. It appeared out of desperation. Shells, mineralized plates, and spines offered a way to survive encounters that would otherwise be fatal. This innovation changed the visual language of life. Bodies became angular, segmented, and rigid. The ocean floor transformed into a battlefield of moving armor. Trilobites represent one of the earliest and most successful armored animals. Their exoskeletons protected vital organs and allowed them to survive attacks that would crush softer prey. Segmentation gave flexibility, while hardness provided defense. This balance made trilobites extraordinarily adaptable. They spread across oceans and persisted for hundreds of millions of years. Armor, however, introduced new problems. Rigid shells limited growth. Molting became necessary, exposing animals to vulnerability during shedding. Heavy armor reduced speed and increased energy requirements. Evolution had to compensate. Muscles strengthened, joints became more efficient, and body shapes streamlined. Predators responded immediately. Crushing feeding strategies evolved to break shells. Mouthparts hardened into grinding plates. Some predators specialized in targeting weak points, such as joints or soft undersides. Hunting became more precise. Brute force alone was not enough. Efficiency mattered. This escalation created a feedback loop. As prey developed stronger armor, predators developed stronger weapons. This arms race pushed both sides toward extremes. Shells thickened, spines lengthened, and jaws reinforced. The ocean became an environment where survival favored those who could either withstand or deliver overwhelming force. Not all species chose heavy armor. Some adopted partial defenses. Spines discouraged swallowing. Toxic tissues punished attackers. Camouflage reduced detection. Each strategy represented a different response to the same pressure. The diversity of solutions is why Cambrian and early Paleozoic life appears so strange. Evolution was exploring every possible defensive design. Internal skeletons emerged as an alternative to external armor. These provided structural support without restricting growth. Vertebrates would later exploit this strategy fully. Internal skeletons allowed for larger bodies, faster movement, and more flexible behavior, while exoskeletons dominated early seas. Endoskeletons set the stage for future dominance. The transition from armor to agility marks a key evolutionary pivot. In crowded, predator-rich environments, speed and awareness sometimes offered better survival than sheer protection. Lightly armored but fast animals could evade attacks rather than endure them. This trade-off continues to define marine life today. Armor also influenced behavior. Heavily armored animals often adopted slower grazing lifestyles. They relied on protection rather than escape. This made them predictable targets. Predators learned to exploit this by ambushing or flipping prey to expose softer areas. Intelligence became as important as strength. The development of armor had long-term consequences for ecosystems. Armored prey allowed predators to grow larger and stronger to overcome defenses. This increased average body size across food webs. Energy demands rose, pushing ecosystems toward greater productivity. Oceans responded with expanded plankton populations to support this growth. This escalation explains why marine environments produce some of the largest animals ever to exist. Once energy flowed efficiently from producers to armored prey to powerful predators, size became advantageous. Larger predators could process tougher prey and dominate territories. Water made this possible by reducing physical constraints. The visual impact of armored life is undeniable. Hard shells, segmented bodies, and spiked silhouettes create an aesthetic that feels both alien and mechanical. This visual language resonates strongly in documentary storytelling. It communicates danger, resilience, and ancient conflict without words. Armor also left a permanent mark on the fossil record. Hard structures fossilize far more readily than soft tissue. This gives us a detailed window into early evolutionary arms races. The abundance of shells, plates, and spines tells a story of constant threat and adaptation. Over time, however, armor alone proved insufficient. Environments changed, predators improved, and energy efficiency became critical. Many heavily armored lineages declined or vanished. Flexibility, intelligence, and adaptability became more valuable. Evolution shifted again, favoring different strategies. This cycle of escalation and collapse repeats throughout history. Marine reptiles would later face similar pressures as their prey evolved defenses and environments shifted. Dominance was never permanent. It had to be constantly earned. The rise of armor represents the moment life learned to fight back. It transformed oceans into arenas of confrontation. Every shell, spine, and plate is evidence of fear written into biology. This is why armored life captivates audiences. It embodies survival under relentless pressure. When the oceans ruled the planet, armor was both shield and burden. It allowed life to endure the rise of predators, but also drove evolution toward new solutions. From this struggle emerged the foundations of all future ecosystems. The arms race between armor and weaponry did not end. It simply changed form. Modern marine life still reflects these ancient battles. Sharks evolved teeth capable of slicing through bone. Turtles carry shells perfected over millions of years. Even microscopic organisms develop protective coverings. This history reveals a central truth. Evolution does not seek balance, it seeks advantage. Armor was one of the earliest advantages and one of the most transformative. It reshaped bodies, behaviors, and entire ecosystems. In the ancient seas, survival belonged to those who could endure or overcome protection. The ocean taught life that defense invites offense and offense invites defense. This lesson would echo through every era that followed. The moment Jaws appeared in the ocean marks one of the most decisive shifts in the balance of power in Earth's history. Before, Jaws feeding was slow, inefficient, and limited. Animals scraped, filtered, or absorbed food. Energy intake was restricted and growth was modest. Jaws changed this instantly. They turned feeding into attack. Early jawless fish already possessed advanced sensory systems and strong swimming ability, but they were constrained by their mouths. Once hinged jaws evolved, prey could be seized, crushed, and processed rapidly. This allowed predators to extract far more energy from their environment. Size increased, speed improved, and ecosystems reorganized around this new capability. Jaws did not evolve once. They evolved as a modular system. Cartilage, bone, muscles, and nerves integrated into a powerful tool. Teeth followed, shaped for cutting, crushing, or gripping. Diversity exploded because jaws could be modified endlessly. This adaptability gave jawed fish an overwhelming advantage over jawless forms. Armored jawless fish declined rapidly once true jaws appeared. They were outcompeted not because they were weak, but because they were inefficient. Jaws allowed predators to target specific prey sizes, reducing waste and increasing survival. Selection favored precision. The rise of jawed fish created the first true vertebrate-dominated oceans. Spines provided structural support, allowing larger bodies and more forceful movement. Fins became more powerful and maneuverable. Fish could chase rather than drift. Oceans transformed into active arenas of pursuit. Apex predators emerged that defined entire ecosystems. Massive placoderms ruled ancient seas with bone-crushing bites. These were the first animals capable of dominating food webs through sheer power. Their presence forced other species to adapt or vanish. Jaws also changed prey strategies. Speed became critical. Schooling behavior evolved to confuse predators. Sensory awareness improved. Life cycles shortened to reproduce before being eaten. The presence of jaws increased mortality, but also accelerated innovation. The efficiency of jaws allowed predators to expand into new niches. Some fed on hard-shelled prey, others specialized in soft-bodied animals. Omnivory became possible. This flexibility made jawed fish resilient to environmental change. They could switch food sources as conditions shifted. This adaptability explains why jawed fish survived multiple mass extinctions while many other lineages did not. Sharks, for example, refined jaw-based feeding into one of the most successful strategies in evolutionary history. Replaceable teeth, continuous growth, and keen senses made them adaptable apex predators for hundreds of millions of years. The rise of jaws also influenced the future of land life. Early tetrapods inherited jaw structures refined in marine environments. The ability to bite, tear, and chew became foundational for terrestrial predators. Every land carnivore traces its ancestry back to this marine innovation. Jaws represent a turning point because they increase the speed of energy transfer in ecosystems. Predators could process more food, grow faster, and exert stronger selective pressure. Ecosystems became more dynamic and more volatile. Dominance shifted quickly as new jaw designs emerged. Visually, jaws symbolize power. Rows of teeth, wide gapes, and crushing bites communicate danger instantly. This is why jawed predators dominate both ancient and modern storytelling. They embody decisive, lethal efficiency. When oceans ruled the planet, jaws were the ultimate weapon. They elevated fish from participants to rulers. They transformed vertebrates into the dominant force of marine ecosystems. Everything that followed marine reptiles, mammals, and even humans inherited this advantage. The age of jawed fish was not a temporary phase. It established a rule that still governs life. Those who can acquire energy efficiently dominate. Jaws were evolution, learning how to weaponize feeding. This era demonstrates that dominance is not always about size. It is about efficiency, adaptability, and control. Jaws delivered all three. They turned oceans into ecosystems defined by predators. From this point forward, any animal without effective feeding mechanisms was doomed to marginal roles or extinction. Jaws reshaped the hierarchy of life. Even today, oceans remain ruled by jawed animals. Sharks, whales, and large fish dominate open waters. The legacy of this innovation continues uninterrupted. The emergence of jaws represents the moment the ocean crowned its first true rulers. The sea had become a place where power was measured in bite force and speed. When oceans ruled the planet, jaws were the tools that enforced that rule. The age of marine reptiles did not begin because reptiles preferred the ocean. It began because the ocean offered something land could not: abundance, scale, and opportunity. By the time reptiles emerged on land, marine ecosystems were already ancient, complex, and brutally competitive. Fish ruled most niches, but gaps remained. Reptiles were the next animals capable of exploiting them. Early reptiles evolved on land as efficient air-breathing vertebrates with strong limbs and flexible metabolisms. They were already superior to amphibians in reproduction and mobility. When some of these reptiles returned to the sea, they did not start from zero. They brought advanced lungs, powerful muscles, and improved nervous systems into an environment that rewarded such traits. This return to water was not a reversal. It was an expansion. The ocean was still the largest ecosystem on the planet, and it offered food chains far richer than those on land. Shallow seas teemed with fish and invertebrates. Deeper waters offered unexplored niches. Competition existed, but it was fragmented. No single lineage controlled everything. Marine reptiles evolved rapidly because water amplified their strengths. Buoyancy reduced the cost of large bodies. Streamlined shapes increased speed. Lungs allowed short, powerful bursts of activity, unlike gill-breathing fish that relied on constant water flow. Reptiles could ambush, strike, and retreat with devastating efficiency. Ichthyosaurs were among the first to fully commit to this lifestyle. Their bodies converged on fish-like shapes with powerful tails and narrow heads. This was not coincidence. Evolution selected the most efficient form for high-speed swimming. Ichthyosaurs became pursuit predators, capable of long-distance travel and deep diving. Some reached sizes comparable to modern whales. Plesiosaurs followed a different strategy. Long-necked forms specialized in ambush feeding, sweeping their heads through schools of fish. Short-necked plesiosaurs became some of the most powerful predators ever to exist. Massive skulls, strong jaws, and explosive acceleration made them dominant hunters. These animals were not slow relics. They were engineered for violence. The success of marine reptiles lay in their flexibility. Unlike fish, they could surface to breathe, allowing greater control over oxygen intake. This supported larger brains and more complex behaviors. Hunting became strategic rather than purely instinctual. Marine reptiles could patrol territories, migrate long distances, and exploit seasonal abundance. This period marks a critical transition. Oceans were no longer ruled solely by fish. Reptiles introduced a new tier of dominance. They hunted fish and each other. Food webs deepened. Apex predator roles multiplied. Ecosystems became more layered and unstable. Marine reptiles also benefited from reproductive adaptations. Some evolved live birth, eliminating the need to return to land. This allowed them to remain fully marine throughout their lives. It removed a major vulnerability and expanded their range into open oceans far from shore. Size escalated rapidly. Once reptiles occupied apex role, selection favored larger bodies. Size provided hunting advantage, intimidation, and thermal stability. Water supported this growth. Massive marine reptiles could exist without collapsing under their own weight. Land animals could not match this scale at the time. The presence of marine reptiles reshaped ocean behavior. Prey species adapted by schooling, diving deeper, or evolving defensive traits. Fish diversified rapidly under this pressure. Some became faster, others more armored. Sharks refined their own strategies to compete. This era demonstrates an important principle. Dominance in the ocean is not permanent. It is cyclical. When a new group evolves a superior strategy, it can displace previous rulers. Marine reptiles did not invent predation. They refined it. Their dominance also reveals why oceans outperform land in producing apex predators. Three-dimensional movement reduces escape options. Visibility is limited. Attacks are sudden and lethal. This environment rewards stealth, speed, and power more than endurance. Marine reptiles embodied all three. They were silent, fast, and intelligent. Their extinction would later prove how dependent dominance is on environmental stability. Changes in temperature, sea level, and food availability would eventually remove their advantage. Yet, during their reign, marine reptiles defined what it meant to rule the planet. They were not confined to specific regions. They spread across global oceans. Their fossils appear on every continent. This global presence reflects true dominance, not local success. From a narrative perspective, this era is uniquely powerful. It combines familiarity and alien scale. Reptiles are recognizable, yet these forms exceed modern experience. Long necks, massive jaws, and whale-sized bodies create visual impact unmatched by land animals. The rise of marine reptiles also bridges evolutionary eras. They connect early fish-dominated oceans to later mammal-dominated seas. Whales would eventually inherit many of their niches. The blueprint for large, intelligent marine predators was established here. Marine reptiles prove that land does not define evolutionary success. Returning to the ocean allowed reptiles to reach heights land could not support. This challenges human-centered views of progress. Advancement is not linear or directional. It follows opportunity. When the oceans ruled the planet, marine reptiles were the symbols of that rule. They represented the peak of reptilian adaptation and the power of aquatic ecosystems. Their rise was not accidental. It was the result of millions of years of oceanic refinement waiting for the right animals to exploit it. This age stands as evidence that the ocean rewards those who can adapt to its physics, its dangers, and its abundance. Marine reptiles did all three. For tens of millions of years, they were unmatched. Their story sets the stage for the next escalation. Apex ocean predators would grow even larger and more efficient. But the foundation of oceanic dominance was cemented here. When reptiles took to the sea, the oceans entered a new era of rule. The largest predators that ever lived did not walk on land. They swam. This is not coincidence, but physics. Water changes the rules of biology. It supports mass, distributes weight, and allows bodies to grow to sizes impossible under gravity alone. Once life learned to exploit this environment, true giants became possible. On land, an animal's size is limited by the strength of its bones and muscles. Weight increases faster than structural strength. Eventually, bodies collapse under their own mass. Water removes much of this constraint. Buoyancy offsets weight, allowing massive bodies to function efficiently. Energy can be invested in growth rather than support. This is why oceans consistently produce the largest animals in Earth's history. Marine reptiles reached lengths that dwarfed land predators. Later, whales would exceed even them. Size in water provides advantages beyond intimidation. Larger animals travel more efficiently, retain heat better, and dominate food chains. Giant predators require massive energy intake. Oceans provide this through plankton-based food webs. Microscopic producers support enormous biomass. This energy flows upward to fish, squid, and ultimately apex predators. Land ecosystems cannot match this efficiency. Primary productivity is more fragmented and seasonal. Marine giants also benefit from three-dimensional hunting space. Attacks can come from below, above, or behind. Prey has limited escape routes. Size amplifies this advantage. A massive predator controls space through presence alone. Smaller animals adjust behavior to avoid detection. Apex marine predators, like giant pliosaurs, mosasaurs, and later sharks, dominated entire regions. Their size allowed them to prey on other large animals. food webs extended upward, predators hunted predators. This increased instability, but also drove rapid evolution. Gigantism also provides thermal stability. Large bodies lose heat slowly. This allowed marine giants to inhabit colder waters, expanding their range. Wider distribution meant access to diverse food sources and reduced vulnerability to local collapse. However, size comes with risk. Large animals require stable environments. Changes in temperature, oxygen, or food availability impact them first. This makes giants vulnerable to rapid environmental shifts. Dominance is powerful but fragile. The rise of ocean giants illustrates a recurring pattern. When conditions are stable, selection favors size. When conditions change, selection favors flexibility. This tension defines marine evolutionary history. From a visual perspective, ocean giants capture imagination instantly. Scale communicates power more effectively than any narrative. Comparisons to modern animals emphasize how extreme these creatures were. A predator larger than a bus challenges human perception of reality. This scale is why ocean documentaries outperform land-focused ones in novelty. Audiences are familiar with large land animals. They are not prepared for the size achievable underwater. This creates awe rather than recognition. Giant predators also change ecosystem behavior. Prey species evolve migration patterns, schooling dynamics, and depth preferences to avoid them. Entire ecosystems organize around the presence of giants. This is true dominance. The extinction of marine giants later demonstrates how tightly size is linked to environmental stability. When oceans changed, giants fell. Smaller, adaptable predators survived and diversified. Sharks, again, are a prime example. This cycle underscores the ocean's role as a generator of extremes. It produces the largest predators and then removes them when conditions shift. Dominance is never permanent, it is conditional. The legacy of these giants remains. Modern whales, sharks, and large fish still reflect the same principles. Size remains advantageous, but only within stable systems. The ocean allowed life to explore scale beyond land's limits. It turned predators into titans. When oceans ruled, the planet size was the ultimate symbol of power. Giants were not anomalies. They were the natural outcome of aquatic physics. This explains why the most powerful predators in history belong to the sea. Water gave evolution room to grow, literally. Land could not compete. When discussing planetary dominance, it is impossible to ignore this fact. The largest animals to ever exist were marine. This alone reframes the narrative of evolutionary success. The ocean is not just a habitat. It is an amplifier. It magnifies biological potential. In doing so, it creates creatures that define entire eras. When the oceans ruled, the planet giants enforced that rule through sheer scale. They were living proof that dominance underwater operates on a different level. Apex ocean predators represent the highest expression of evolutionary dominance. They are not simply large or aggressive. They sit at the top of complex food webs shaped by millions of years of selective pressure. When an animal reaches this position, It influences everything below it, from population sizes to behavior and even evolution itself. In ancient oceans, apex predators emerged only after ecosystems became sufficiently layered. Energy had to flow efficiently from microscopic producers to large prey species. Once this structure stabilized, the conditions were right for true rulers to appear. Marine reptiles filled this role with remarkable efficiency. Mosasaurs, pliosaurs, and large ichthyosaurs did not dominate by chance. They possessed combinations of speed, strength, intelligence, and sensory precision unmatched by other animals of their time. Their jaws could crush bone, their bodies were built for sudden acceleration, and their senses allowed them to detect prey in murky water. Apex predators in the ocean operate differently than on land. Water muffles, sound limits visibility, and allows movement in all directions. This favors ambush and surprise. Successful predators strike quickly, delivering fatal damage before prey can respond. Endurance chases are rare. Efficiency is everything. These predators shape the behavior of entire ecosystems. Prey species evolved schooling, migration, and depth changes to avoid detection. Even other predators adjusted their activity patterns. Dominance extended beyond direct kills. Fear alone altered the ocean. Food webs under apex control become tightly regulated. Prey populations remain balanced, preventing overgrazing of lower trophic levels. This stabilizes ecosystems, but also makes them sensitive. Removing the apex predator can cause collapse or overpopulation. Apex predators also compete with each other. In ancient seas, multiple dominant species often overlapped. This competition drove further specialization. Some focused on speed, others on power, others on stealth. Diversity at the top increased complexity throughout the system. The presence of apex predators accelerated evolutionary turnover. Prey species that could not adapt quickly were eliminated. Those that survived diversified rapidly. This constant pressure produced ecosystems of high efficiency and constant change. Marine apex predators often had global ranges. Open oceans allowed movement across vast distances. This made them resilient to local disruptions, but vulnerable to global changes. When climate shifts occurred, their dominance could vanish rapidly. From a storytelling perspective, apex predators embody ultimate control. They represent a culmination of evolutionary trends. Audiences instinctively understand hierarchy. Apex predators sit clearly at the top. This clarity drives engagement. Unlike land predators, marine apex hunters feel more alien. Humans share land with predators but remain outsiders to the ocean. This separation increases fear and fascination. Apex ocean predators feel untouchable. The extinction of these predators illustrates the fragility of dominance. Even the most powerful animals cannot survive rapid environmental change. Shifts in temperature, sea level, and food webs removed their advantages. Extinction was swift. Yet, apex roles never remain empty. Sharks rose again, mammals followed. The position persists even as occupants change. This continuity underscores the ocean's capacity to rebuild complexity. Apex predators are not villains or heroes. They are stabilizing forces and engines of change. They maintain balance through fear and removal. Without them, ecosystems behave differently, often destructively. The rule of apex predators defines what it means for oceans to rule the planet. Control is exerted not through numbers, but through influence. A single predator can shape thousands of lives. This is why narratives centered on apex ocean predators resonate strongly. They provide clear stakes, dominance, conflict, and consequence. They also connect directly to modern oceans, where similar dynamics still operate. When the oceans ruled the planet, apex predators were the enforcers of that rule. They embodied the highest stakes of evolution. Power, efficiency, and adaptation converged in their forms. Their legacy continues in every large marine predator alive today. The rules they established remain unchanged. Dominance belongs to those who can sense, strike, and survive. The ocean continues to produce apex predators because it continues to reward them. As long as energy flows and complexity exists, there will be rulers. Understanding apex ocean predators is understanding how dominance works on a planetary scale. It is not about conquest. It is about control of energy and fear. When oceans ruled the planet, apex predators made that rule visible. They were the silent authorities of the deep, shaping life from above. Hunting in the prehistoric ocean was nothing like hunting on land. Light faded quickly, sound traveled differently, and pressure increased with depth. Vision alone was unreliable. Predators that depended only on sight were limited to shallow waters and daylight. True dominance required something more. It required new senses. As marine ecosystems expanded into deeper, darker waters, predators followed. Food existed beyond the reach of sunlight, and competition was often lower. But these environments demanded radical adaptation. Eyes became less useful and sometimes disappeared entirely. Other senses took over. One of the earliest shifts was sensitivity to vibration. Water transmits movement extremely well. Even small motions create pressure waves that travel long distances. Animals that could detect these disturbances gained an enormous advantage. Lateral line systems evolved, allowing predators to sense movement without seeing it. Prey could be detected through darkness, sediment, and even obstacles. This changed the nature of fear. Prey no longer had to be visible to be hunted. Stillness became a survival strategy. Many animals evolved slow, deliberate movement or complete immobility to avoid detection. Others adopted sudden burst movement to confuse predators once detected. Smell also became critical. Chemical signals travel efficiently in water. Predators evolved to detect trace amounts of blood waste or pheromones. This allowed them to track prey over long distances. Hunting became persistent rather than opportunistic. Pressure tolerance opened even deeper realms. Animals that could withstand crushing depths accessed ecosystems untouched by surface predators. This created vertical stratification. Different predators ruled different depths. Dominance was no longer horizontal, but layered. Deep-sea predators often evolved soft, flexible bodies to handle pressure. Bones became less dense. Muscles adapted for slow, efficient movement. Energy conservation was essential. Food was scarce, and encounters were rare. When prey appeared, it had to be captured quickly. Bioluminescence emerged as both weapon and defense. Some predators used light to lure prey, others used flashes to disorient or communicate. Prey species evolved counter-strategies using light to confuse outlines or blend with residual surface glow. Darkness became an active battlefield. Silence mattered. Water carries sound efficiently. Predators that moved quietly avoided detection. Streamlined bodies reduced turbulence. Fins and limbs evolved shapes that minimized noise. Hunting became stealth-based. This environment favored ambush over pursuit. Energy could not be wasted on long chases. Predators waited concealed, striking with explosive speed. This required precise timing and spatial awareness. Nervous systems adapted accordingly. Deep ocean hunting also altered social behavior. Some predators hunted alone, others coordinated loosely through environmental cues. Pack hunting, as seen on land, was rare, but strategic positioning occurred. Intelligence was expressed differently. Pressure and darkness also shaped reproduction. Many deep-sea species produce fewer offspring, investing heavily in each. Survival chances were low, but competition was reduced. Predators adapted to feast when possible and endure long periods without food. These adaptations produced creatures that appear monstrous to surface observers. Elongated jaws, expandable stomachs, glowing organs, and translucent bodies are not aberrations. They are solutions to extreme conditions. This is why deep ocean predators feel so alien. Their world obeys different rules. Familiar reference points disappear. Gravity is softened, light is absent, and time feels stretched. Human intuition fails. From a documentary perspective, this environment is pure tension. Viewers are conditioned to rely on sight. Removing it creates discomfort. Predators emerging from darkness trigger primal fear responses. This enhances engagement. Prehistoric oceans amplified this effect. Fewer predators meant less caution from prey. Ambush success rates were high. Extinction could occur rapidly if a species failed to adapt. Darkness was unforgiving. This also explains why many deep adapted lineages survived mass extinctions. Deep waters buffered temperature swings and surface chaos. Predators adapted to darkness were often insulated from catastrophic events. Depth became refuge. The legacy of this hunting style persists. Modern sharks, whales, and deep-sea fish still rely on vibration, sound, and chemical detection. The rules established millions of years ago remain unchanged. Darkness, pressure, and silence forced evolution to explore sensory extremes. This pushed intelligence, perception, and specialization beyond what land environments demanded. The ocean rewarded those who could sense the unseen. This dimension of ocean dominance is often overlooked. Size and speed are obvious, but sensory superiority is more decisive. Knowing where prey is without being seen is ultimate control. When the oceans ruled the planet, darkness was not empty. It was alive with hunters adapted to conditions that would crush or blind surface animals. Dominance extended into places sunlight never reached. This reinforces why ocean narratives outperform land ones in mystery. Land predators are visible and understood. Ocean predators operate in realms humans cannot access. Uncertainty drives fascination. Hunting in darkness represents evolution at its most ruthless. Energy is scarce, mistakes are fatal, and adaptation is mandatory. Every trait is optimized. The deep ocean is not a fringe environment. It is the largest habitat on Earth. Its rules shape global biology. Dominance here matters more than dominance anywhere else. Prehistoric oceans taught life how to hunt without sight, how to survive pressure, and how to control space invisibly. These lessons shaped every apex predator that followed. When the oceans ruled the planet, they ruled not just through giants and jaws, but through mastery of the unseen. Darkness, pressure, and silence were not obstacles, they were tools. Mass extinctions did not spare the ocean. Although water buffered some environmental shocks, the sea was never immune to planetary collapse. When global systems failed, the rulers of the ocean fell with them. The extinction of sea kings reveals how dominance is tied not only to strength but to stability. Marine ecosystems are built on delicate balances. Temperature, oxygen levels, and nutrient flow must remain within narrow ranges. Apex predators sit at the end of these systems. When disruption occurs, they are affected first. Large bodies require constant energy. When food webs fracture, giants starve. Some of the earliest mass extinctions reshaped marine life dramatically. The end Ordovician event, triggered by rapid cooling and sea level fall, wiped out vast portions of marine species. Shallow seas drained, removing habitats. Organisms adapted to stable, warm waters vanished quickly. The late Devonian extinction targeted reef systems and large predatory fish. Oxygen depletion in oceans created dead zones. Apex predators, dependent on high oxygen levels, suffered. Smaller, more adaptable species survived. Dominance shifted. The most catastrophic event in Earth's history, the end Permian extinction, devastated marine ecosystems almost completely. Volcanic activity released enormous amounts of greenhouse gases. Oceans warmed, acidified, and lost oxygen. Over 90% of marine species disappeared. Entire food webs collapsed. This event ended many dominant marine lineages permanently. Trilobites vanished. Many large predators disappeared. Ecosystems were stripped to their foundations. Recovery took tens of millions of years. The lesson repeated through time. Dominance built on size and specialization is powerful but fragile. Mass extinctions reset ecosystems, favoring flexibility over supremacy. Marine reptiles would later face similar fates. The end Triassic and end Cretaceous events reshaped oceans again. Temperature shifts and productivity loss undermined their food sources. Even the most efficient hunters could not survive prolonged scarcity. What makes ocean extinctions particularly dramatic is their scale. Marine ecosystems cover most of the planet. When they collapse, the impact is global. There are no refuges large enough to preserve complex food webs intact. However, the ocean also demonstrates remarkable resilience. After each extinction, new rulers emerged. Mammals, fish diversified, sharks rose, mammals later took control. Dominance changed hands, but the structure of oceanic rule persisted. This cycle of rise and collapse drives evolutionary innovation. Empty niches invite experimentation. Survivors diversify rapidly. Oceans rebuild complexity faster than land because energy flow resumes quickly once conditions stabilize. From a narrative standpoint, extinction events provide natural turning points. They explain why certain giants vanished and why others rose. They add stakes, inevitability, and scale. Extinction also humanizes ancient predators. Despite their power, they were vulnerable to forces beyond control. Climate chemistry and geology ultimately decide dominance. This reinforces a core theme. The ocean rules, but it does not protect. It amplifies both success and failure. When conditions favor life, dominance is extreme. When conditions shift, collapse is swift. Understanding marine extinctions reframes the story of life. It is not a smooth progression, but a series of experiments interrupted by catastrophe. Survival belongs to those prepared for instability. This perspective resonates strongly with modern audiences. Climate change, ocean warming, and acidification mirror ancient patterns. The fall of past sea kings feels relevant. Mass extinctions remind us that no ruler is permanent. Oceans have crowned and destroyed more dominant species than any other environment. Power is temporary. The extinction of sea giants is not a tragedy alone. It is a reset mechanism. It allows life to explore new forms. Without extinctions, ecosystems would stagnate. This balance between destruction and renewal defines oceanic history. The sea is both creator and executioner. When the oceans ruled the planet, their rule was enforced by stability. When that stability broke, even the strongest fell. Understanding this cycle explains why marine dominance is both awe-inspiring and fragile. Extinction is not the end of the story. It is the transition. Every collapse seeds the next era of rulers. The ocean remembers none of them. This truth gives ocean narratives their depth. Dominance is impressive but impermanent. In the end, the ocean itself outlasts every ruler. The disappearance of sea giants was not sudden in a single moment. It was a drawn-out process shaped by energy economics. Giants ruled when oceans were stable, productive, and predictable. Once those conditions changed, size became a liability. Survival shifted away from dominance toward efficiency. Large predators require constant, high-energy intake. Their bodies burn fuel even at rest. When mass extinctions reduced plankton productivity and disrupted food chains, the base of the system weakened. Prey populations declined or fragmented. For giants, this meant starvation. Smaller predators adapted by switching diets or reducing activity. Giants could not. This is why many enormous marine reptiles vanished while sharks survived. Sharks did not rely on a single prey source. They could scavenge hunt smaller animals or shift habitats. Their cartilaginous skeletons required less energy to maintain. Their replaceable teeth allowed constant feeding without structural failure. Size once provided advantage, but now demanded too much. Ecosystems favored animals that could do more with less. Agility, adaptability, and metabolic efficiency replaced brute force. The ocean selected for survivors, not rulers. Another critical factor was reproduction. Giants reproduced slowly. Fewer offspring meant slower recovery from population losses. Smaller predators reproduce more frequently, allowing faster rebound after environmental shocks. Dominance without resilience was unsustainable. The extinction of sea giants reshaped ocean behavior. Without massive predators controlling prey populations, smaller hunters expanded rapidly, food webs became flatter. Competition increased at mid-levels. This created crowded ecosystems filled with versatile generalists. This shift is visible in modern oceans. Sharks, tuna, and marine mammals occupy apex roles but rarely reach the extreme sizes of prehistoric reptiles except in filter feeders like whales. Even whales depend on enormous plankton abundance rather than active predation. The extinction of giants also changed the visual language of the ocean. Dominance became subtler. Speed, stealth, and coordination replaced sheer mass. Predators became more intelligent and socially complex rather than physically overwhelming. This transition underscores a recurring rule. Evolution does not reward greatness. It rewards survival. Giants were spectacular, but inflexible. Smaller predators were adaptable. The ocean did not mourn its rulers. It replaced them. Dominance changed form, but never disappeared. This makes the extinction of sea giants one of the most important lessons in evolutionary history. Power without adaptability is temporary. Size without flexibility leads to collapse. From a narrative perspective, this moment resonates strongly. It mirrors the fall of empires. Dominance peaks, then fades not through defeat, but through inability to adapt. The ocean teaches that survival favors those who can endure scarcity, not those who dominate abundance. When conditions are perfect, giants thrive. When conditions change, they vanish. This explains why modern oceans look different from ancient ones. The absence of giant marine reptiles is not a failure of evolution. It is an optimization. Yet, the memory of giants remains. Fossils remind us of what oceans can produce when conditions align. They show the upper limits of biological potential. The extinction of sea giants closed one chapter, but opened another. It allowed mammals to rise. Whales inherited the open ocean. Dolphins refined intelligence and coordination. Sharks perfected efficiency. Dominance became quieter, but no less absolute. This final transition completes the arc of oceanic rule, from explosion to escalation to collapse and renewal. The ocean remains the constant. Rulers change. When the oceans ruled, the planet giants enforced that rule. When giants fell, the ocean adapted. It always does. Marine life evolves faster than land life, not because it is more aggressive, but because the ocean applies constant pressure without relief. On land, seasons provide pauses. Winters slow metabolism, droughts limit interaction, and geographic barriers isolate populations. The ocean rarely offers such breaks. Conditions fluctuate, but interaction never stops. Water connects everything. Currents move organisms, nutrients, and genes across vast distances. This constant mixing accelerates genetic exchange and competition. Advantageous traits spread quickly. Ineffective ones disappear just as fast. Evolution becomes continuous rather than episodic. Marine environments also remain relatively stable over long timescales. Temperature ranges are narrower than on land. This stability allows specialization. Organisms refine traits without needing to reset for extreme seasonal swings. Once a successful design appears, it can be optimized rapidly. At the same time, microenvironments within the ocean vary dramatically. Depth, pressure, light, and chemistry change vertically over short distances. This creates stacked habitats. Species evolve to exploit narrow layers. Slight advantages become decisive. Competition intensifies. Predation pressure in the ocean is relentless. Escape options are limited. There are no shelters, trees, or caves at most depths. Prey must survive in open water under constant threat. This selects for rapid response, high sensory awareness, and efficient movement. Evolution favors speed and precision. Reproduction also accelerates change. Many marine species release vast numbers of offspring. Mortality is high, but selection is ruthless. Only the most suited survive. This creates rapid generational turnover, allowing quick adaptation. Even large marine animals evolve faster than expected. Sharks have refined their designs repeatedly across geological time. Whales adapted from land mammals to fully marine giants in a fraction of evolutionary time compared to earlier transitions. This speed of change explains why oceans repeatedly produce new apex predators after extinctions. Recovery is faster, niches refill quickly, complexity rebuilds. From a narrative standpoint, this makes ocean history dynamic. Dominance shifts rapidly. Forms appear, disappear, and reappear in new configurations. Land evolution feels slower and more linear by comparison. The ocean is a continuous evolutionary engine. It never stops testing life. Those that fail vanish quietly. Those that succeed spread globally. This is why marine dominance feels overwhelming. Evolution moves faster, deeper, and broader underwater. When oceans ruled the planet, they did so through constant pressure and relentless refinement. Ocean monsters outperform land dinosaurs on screen because they trigger a different psychological response. Dinosaurs are familiar. Their shapes have been repeated in films, books, and toys for decades. Viewers recognize them instantly and predict their behavior. Ocean creatures do not offer that comfort. They exist in environments humans cannot enter and rarely observe. Uncertainty amplifies fear and fascination. Marine life also breaks visual expectations. Transparency, glowing organs, elongated jaws, and unnatural proportions feel alien even though they are real. These traits evolved for survival in darkness, pressure, and open water, but to human eyes, they resemble science fiction. This makes ocean creatures feel new even when they are ancient. The ocean hides scale better than land. Water obscures distance. A creature can be enormous and still appear suddenly. This allows reveal moments that land environments cannot replicate. A giant predator emerging from blue darkness feels more threatening than one approaching across open ground. Lighting plays a critical role. Land scenes are usually well lit. Ocean scenes rely on contrast, shadows, and limited visibility. This creates natural suspense. Viewers lean in, anticipating movement. Tension builds without dialogue. Movement in water is also more fluid and unpredictable. Predators can change direction instantly. Gravity does not constrain motion. This makes attacks feel faster and less avoidable. Prey appears helpless. Dominance feels absolute. Sound design reinforces this. Muffled echoes, deep rumbles, and silence amplify unease. Land predators announce themselves through footsteps, roars, or movement. Ocean predators often arrive without warning. Silence becomes part of the threat. The unfamiliar anatomy of marine creatures enhances this effect. Multiple fins, flexible bodies, and unusual locomotion challenge human pattern recognition. The brain struggles to categorize what it sees. This cognitive discomfort increases attention. This is why thumbnails featuring ocean creatures perform strongly. A single frame can communicate mystery, scale, and danger. Glowing eyes emerging from darkness, or a massive jaw framed against a diver, instantly tells a story. Land dinosaurs require context. Ocean monsters do not. There is also less cultural saturation. Viewers have not memorized the names or behaviors of most marine predators. Curiosity remains intact. Novelty drives clicks and retention. Documentaries benefit from this gap in familiarity. Every reveal feels educational rather than repetitive. Viewers feel they are discovering something rather than revisiting known territory. The ocean also taps into primal fear of drowning. Humans evolved to survive on land. Underwater environments represent loss of control. Predators in that environment feel unbeatable. This emotional response is difficult to achieve with land animals. Viewers subconsciously believe they could escape. Underwater, that illusion disappears. Ocean monsters combine realism and alienation. They are real organisms, yet feel unreal. This balance is ideal for visual storytelling. When oceans ruled the planet, their creatures dominated not just ecosystems, but imagination. They still do. Ocean-focused documentaries face far less competition than land dinosaur content because the subject space remains largely unexplored. Land dinosaurs have been catalogued, categorized, and repeated across media for generations. Most viewers already know the major names, body shapes, and behaviors. Novelty has diminished. Oceans, by contrast, remain incomplete, even scientifically. Marine prehistory suffers from a visibility gap, not a lack of importance. Fossils are harder to find underwater, and soft-bodied organisms preserve poorly. Deep-sea environments are difficult to study. This has left large portions of ocean history fragmented and mysterious. For storytelling, this is an advantage. Mystery sustains attention. When information is incomplete, viewers remain engaged, searching for understanding. Ocean narratives thrive on unanswered questions. What lived deeper? How did they hunt? Why did they disappear? Uncertainty fuels retention. Content saturation also matters algorithmically. Fewer creators focus on marine dominance compared to land dinosaurs. This reduces direct competition. Videos stand out more easily, thumbnails feel distinct. Titles avoid repetition, discovery improves. The ocean also allows broader thematic range. Land dinosaurs are often constrained to species profiles or extinction narratives. Ocean documentaries can span physics, evolution, climate, biology, and sensory perception seamlessly. This depth supports longer-form content without fatigue. Marine stories also scale better. Oceans connect globally. A single predator can traverse continents. Narratives feel planetary rather than regional. This aligns with documentary formats focused on Earth systems rather than isolated species. The lack of oversaturation means audience expectations are lower. Viewers are not comparing content to iconic films or childhood knowledge. They are open to new interpretations and pacing. Trust builds quickly. From a production standpoint, ocean visuals offer flexibility. Modern simulations, sonar imagery, and abstract visuals convey scale without requiring strict realism. This reduces creative constraints while maintaining credibility. This is why ocean documentaries consistently feel fresh. They operate in a space where curiosity outweighs familiarity. Less competition does not mean less interest. It means more room to dominate. When oceans ruled the planet, the story remained hidden. Uncovering it now gives creators an advantage land dinosaurs no longer offer. The era when the oceans rule the planet is not a closed chapter. It is a recurring pattern. Dominance shifts, but the ocean remains the primary engine of planetary life. Every major transition in Earth's history has passed through the sea. The future will be no different. Climate change is already reshaping marine ecosystems. Warming waters, acidification, and shifting currents mirror conditions that triggered past upheavals. Species adapted to narrow ranges are declining. Adaptable generalists are expanding. Dominance is changing again. Modern oceans are returning to conditions that once favored rapid evolutionary turnover. Rising temperatures reduce oxygen levels. This selects for efficient metabolisms and smaller body sizes. Large, specialized predators face increasing pressure. History is repeating. The possibility of new apex dominance is real. Ecosystems reorganize quickly when constraints change. New predator-prey relationships emerge. Migration patterns shift. Food webs reassemble. Humans often view themselves as separate from this process. In reality, civilization depends entirely on ocean stability. Climate regulation, oxygen production, and food security all trace back to marine systems. This makes the story of ocean dominance more than history. It is a warning and a forecast. When oceans change, life follows. The past shows that oceans recover, but not on human timescales. Dominance may return, but rulers will be different. Survival favors adaptability, not control. When the oceans ruled the planet, they shaped everything that followed. They will do so again.